Welcome to Historical. This is the place where we dive deep into dark, strange, and unexplained stories from real life and the internet. I'm your host, and today we're going to be talking about a guy that win $107 million and end up in jail. This story is one of those situations that sounds unbelievable at first, but once you start going through it, everything begins to make sense in a very unsettling way. So stay with me because this one gets interesting very quickly. Let's get into it. Back in 2025, there was this guy named James living in Georgetown, Kentucky, and if people around town knew anything about him, it was that trouble always seemed to follow him around. By the time this story starts, James is around 50 years old, and honestly, his record is long. He had spent years going in and out of jail for all kinds of charges: drug trafficking, burglary, theft, weapons charges, and even assaulting a girlfriend at one point. And the crazy part is that even while he was locked up, he still kept getting into more trouble. Fighting inmates, smuggling contraband, bribing a prison guard, it just never really stopped. At one point, he had reportedly been held in around 25 different correctional institutions across Kentucky. That is a huge number, especially in a state where people talk and reputations stick with you for years. And in a smaller place like Georgetown, people remember things. Even if somebody tries to change, their past follows them around. Everybody knows somebody who knows somebody. So when James would get out of jail, people already had opinions about him before he even walked into a room. That kind of reputation can completely shape a person's life. Some people stop trying to fix things because they feel like nobody expects anything better from them anyway. But then something happened that looked like it was about to change everything overnight. One day in 2025, James was out on parole and he went with his mom to a local gas station. Apparently buying lottery tickets was something he did pretty often. Him and his mom pooled their money together and bought a few $2 Powerball tickets. Nothing unusual about it. People buy lottery tickets every day thinking maybe they'll get lucky, but most people never actually expect anything to happen. Then the next day his mom checked the numbers online and suddenly everything changed. One of the tickets matched. They had hit the jackpot, and not just any jackpot either. They had won the biggest Powerball prize in Kentucky history at the time. The total amount was $167.3 million. Just imagine how insane that must have felt for them. One minute you're living a regular life with financial problems, legal problems, stress, and uncertainty, and then the next minute you're suddenly connected to more money than most people could ever imagine spending. For somebody like James, who had spent years struggling and getting arrested, it probably felt unreal. Not long after that, the Kentucky Lottery invited James and his mom down for the official press conference. They posed for photos holding the giant check, smiling with his girlfriend standing beside him. Suddenly, James wasn't just some guy with a criminal record anymore. He was the lottery winner everybody was talking about. But even though the jackpot was $167.3 million, they didn't actually take home all of that money. Like most lottery winners, they had a choice. They could either receive smaller payments over many years or take a one-time lump sum payment. James and his mom chose the lump sum, which came out to around $77.3 million before taxes. Still, that is life-changing money. Most people hearing this story probably think the same thing at this point. They probably assume this is where James finally settles down. No more arrests, no more jail, no more running around getting into fights or doing reckless things. Because honestly, why would you? If you suddenly had tens of millions of dollars, you could disappear somewhere quiet and never worry about money again. But that's not what happened. After collecting the money, James and his girlfriend Jackie Fightmaster headed down to St. Pete Beach, Florida to celebrate. And yes, Fightmaster was apparently her real last name. They stayed at a beachfront resort, and for a while it probably felt like they were living the dream. Expensive hotel, drinks flowing, everybody celebrating this massive lottery win. But according to reports, things started going downhill pretty quickly. At the hotel bar, James was drinking and apparently bragging about the money they had just won. And as the night went on, he started getting aggressive with other guests. Eventually, he got into a heated argument with another man at the bar, and things escalated fast. James punched the guy in the face, and suddenly the entire place turned chaotic. People started jumping and trying to break things up while Jackie was yelling and screaming at bystanders. Then the police arrived. One officer reportedly pinned down the man James had punched, and during the confusion, James tried to kick the man. But instead of hitting him, he accidentally kicked the police officer in the face. Bodycam footage later showed the moment happening very fast. After that, James tried to run, got tased, tackled, and arrested right there in Florida. And think about how wild that situation really is. The guy had become a millionaire only days earlier, and already he was back in handcuffs again. For a lot of people watching from the outside, it probably felt like nothing had actually changed. He had all this money now, but the behavior stayed the same. James later pleaded guilty to battery and resisting arrest. He paid a fine and moved on. Jackie was also arrested during the incident, although she only spent about a day in jail. But the problems kept coming. A few months later, James was back in Kentucky driving around in a black Porsche that was reportedly purchased after the lottery win. And according to police, he was driving dangerously fast one night, eventually going over 100 miles per hour before slamming into another vehicle from behind. Now most people would stop immediately after a crash like that, but police said James fled the scene instead. Officers did not catch him that night, but eventually they tracked him down and arrested him again for leaving the scene of an accident. At this point, you can already see a pattern developing. Every time something happened, there was another arrest right behind it. And when somebody has millions of dollars, that attention becomes even bigger. Every mistake gets reported. Every mugshot spreads online. Every local news station starts covering it. In a smaller community, people talk about it nonstop. And honestly, it probably became impossible for James to go anywhere without people recognizing him as the lottery winner who kept getting arrested. But things somehow got even stranger after that. At some point later, James met up with a woman in Lexington and brought her back to his place. It's not really clear whether she was just a friend or if there was something else going on there, especially considering he was still involved with Jackie Fightmaster at the time. During the night, James offered the woman some kind of gummy that was reportedly marijuana-related. The woman apparently felt uncomfortable about taking it because she didn't fully know what was inside it, but according to reports, James pressured her into taking it anyway. After that, the woman started panicking badly. She became convinced people in the house had guns and were trying to kill her. She was so scared that she hid under a desk and called 911. Imagine how terrifying that must have been for her. Whether the gummy was too strong, mixed with something else, or whether she was simply having an extreme reaction, she clearly believed she was in danger. When police arrived, they reportedly found her still hiding under the desk and extremely frightened. Police also found drugs and a handgun inside the house, and once again James was arrested, this time facing intimidation charges. And once again, because he now had massive amounts of money available, he was able to post bail and get out. That's another thing people started noticing in this story. Before winning the lottery, somebody with constant arrests and charges might struggle badly to get out of jail quickly. But after becoming rich, James suddenly had the resources to keep bonding himself out over and over again. Then about a month later, more drama happened involving Jackie Fightmaster. The two were spending time at Red Mile Gaming in Lexington, which is a racetrack and casino. At some point they got into a major argument. Nobody really knows exactly what started it, but apparently things became heated enough that James left and drove back to Jackie's house, where he had been staying. And honestly, people online found that detail kind of surprising. This guy had tens of millions of dollars now, yet he was reportedly still staying at somebody else's house instead of fully settling into some giant mansion somewhere. Anyway, James arrived at the house to collect his belongings, and his movements triggered the home security cameras. Jackie could reportedly see him through her phone while she was away from the house. Still angry from their earlier argument, she called police. By the time officers arrived, James had already left. But when Jackie returned home, she discovered that a shoebox containing $12,000 in cash was missing. She accused James of stealing it. Now that accusation confused a lot of people because, again, this was somebody who had just received $77.3 million. Most people could not understand why a millionaire would risk criminal charges over $12,000. But police took the report seriously and started looking for him again. Meanwhile, James went back to Red Mile Gaming. A few hours later, officers reportedly spotted his black Porsche parked there. They approached him and arrested him again, this time for burglary. And by this stage, the story had almost become unbelievable. Within months of becoming one of Kentucky's biggest lottery winners ever, James had gone from holding a giant ceremonial check at a press conference to collecting multiple mugshots. But then the burglary case suddenly changed direction. At the preliminary hearing, Jackie Fightmaster reportedly testified that the missing shoebox had actually been misplaced. She said she later found it and claimed the entire situation was just a misunderstanding. Because of that, the burglary charges against James were eventually dropped. Still, by then the damage to his public image was already done. The headlines were everywhere. People were talking about him nonstop online and around town. And stories like this spread fast because people are fascinated by what happens when somebody suddenly gets a huge amount of money. A lot of people think winning the lottery automatically fixes a person's life, but this story shows that money usually just makes whatever is already there even bigger. If somebody already struggles with anger, addiction, reckless behavior, or bad decisions, millions of dollars do not magically erase those problems overnight. And in James's case, even after becoming rich, the arrests, the arguments, the police reports, and the chaos just kept continuing. At least for the moment, James is not sitting in jail. But based on the pattern people had already seen over the years, many were left wondering whether the cycle was actually going to stop at all.